We're speaking to Aaron Mokhtar this morning. He is a cybersecurity advocate. Thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us on the Light Breakfast.
Hey, what's up, Light Breakfast team?
Long time no see, man.
New faces.
Yes, that's
New
right.
faces, but old faces also. Yeah.
Now, Aaron, I mean, we've read so much about scams happening here in Malaysia and around the world as well. But are there any telltale signs that we should be looking out for when it comes to a scam?
The golden rule is if it's too good to be true, it probably
It
isn't
probably
true.
is. Right?
That's I mean, if you have to summarize it in one sentence, that would probably be it. But I mean, fraud and scam is a big thing. I mean, if you look at cybersecurity in Malaysia, right? They take incident reports, and from January to September, they've had 8,300 reports coming in regards to cybersecurity threats, and out of the 8,000 plus, 6,000 were fraud related.
Okay. What constitutes cybersecurity threats?
Anything that has malicious intent, anything that involves you being an unwilling victim or unwillingly sharing your information.
On the phone or in the computer, that kind of thing?
Anything in terms of digital communication. So yes, now with smartphones, your phone, your modem, if you have a fax machine, that can be considered cyber security. Also, if somebody still uses a fax machine.
I was just wondering about that now. If anybody has a fax machine, I would
I
like to get
still
it.
have a fax machine at home.
Seriously?
Well,
Wow.
it's a a printer fax
Right.
scanner kind of thing.
Wow.
Well, the way things are going, you'll probably end up going back to like normal letters.
I know, right? Safer, right? Yeah.
Snail mails. Now, how do these scammers use tech to trick us into giving away our money?
Well, number one is criminals are always lazy. Now, what I mean by lazy, don't confuse lazy with not smart, right?
Mm.
What I mean by lazy is that they are always looking for shortcuts. And because they are always looking for shortcuts, they will game the system or understand the system better than anyone else, right? So, for instance, if somebody is a fraudster on the streets, they'll be the smoothest stalker in the world, right? So, if somebody's going to scam you through your email, they'll know front to back, left to right, how emails work, how the ecosystem works. So criminals know the platforms they're on and know how to take advantage of it, and take advantage of the fact that a lot of people um, use platforms that they are not comfortable or 100% sure of using properly.
So, what are some of the latest cybersecurity threats that you've seen come out?
Okay, just scam related, right? Because I think today we're just talking about scam because it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole big world out there.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about scams, one is recently since March, COVID related scams.
Wow.
So whether somebody is giving you false information, right? That's one. Secondly, somebody is giving you false, what do you call it? Ubat medication. A cure that will protect you and your family.
Right.
Or in terms of your information for financial help, because a lot of people have lost jobs or have had to work from home. So any financial help will be very appreciated, and criminals will always take advantage of these high pressure situations to kind of pull the feels and try and get you to follow your emotions and not your head.
Right.
We
Mm.
also have buying or selling scams, and again, everyone's stuck at home. But yeah, so a lot of these offers of buy one get 20 free, things like that. We have dating and romance scams. So this is where again the criminals will target, for instance, single moms, or for instance, somebody who's lost a spouse, and they know all of this because everyone's on social media, right? We have fake charities, again, COVID related. Everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to donate equipment or money. So these guys will take advantage of people's good nature to do fake charities. We have investment scams, right? Or you never know if you have a job next month because of COVID. So why don't you invest your savings? You have job and employment scams. Everyone, people who've lost a job are desperate to find one. So you'll have people who are like, yeah, I can help you, but you gotta give me some fee and things like
Mm.
that. We have threat and extortion or ransomware. So this is where a
Right.
criminal will hack your computer, lock down your information, and tell you, look, if you don't pay me a certain amount, I'm going to delete your files, or you'll never have access to it. You have unexpected money. So congratulations, you've been selected, or your EPF number is being picked up, and all these things. And last but not least is unexpected winnings.
But I mean, you know, because you're in this line, but some people would think like, wow, I'm really lucky I won this and I do have this app, you know?
Yeah.
So perhaps what will happen if they do send the OTP number over?
Well, that number is to confirm that you are the one making the request, the
And
financial request,
transferring.
right?
Right.
So, like if you do any online banking, after you transfer money or, for instance, pay your bill or buy something online, you'll always get that SMS with the 6-digit number.
Yeah.
If they get that number, then whatever transaction that they've done on their computer will get through, right? So
Right.
you never want to share that number. And again, banks do state in the SMS that they send with that number, do not share this with anyone.
Mm.
So if anybody calls you up and asks you for that number, whether they're the bank, the police, bank negara, income tax, employees, anybody, you never share that number, or in actual fact, never share any information to anyone.
But it's proven that people do share it, and not scams wouldn't work, right? So why do people still share?
Well, okay, there's a lot of different factors in play, right? One is lack of information or lack of awareness on the threats, right? So if I don't know that there's a shark in the pool, I'm just gonna jump in the pool,
Mm.
right? So that's one. You don't know that there are threats out there. Secondly, is that with the more senior generation, they have a tendency to believe anything that looks formal.
Right.
So if I get an email that looks very formal, if I get an SMS that looks very formal, the tendency is for me to believe. I mean, I remember when I was 18 years old, which was a very long time. I'm not going to say what year, but I think about 20, 25 years ago, what happened was I got a letter from Reader's Digest, right?
Right.
And it was really well printed with color, and I opened it up and it told me I want a BMW, and inside there was like a aluminium key, right? And this was a time when color printer was really expensive. So at that time, getting something in color printed was already like, wow, this must be legit,
Yeah.
right? So nowadays, when somebody gets a message that looks legit, or gets a message from a number that is legit, the assumption is, oh, this is the number, so it must be true.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So it does involve, in a way, when it comes to online safety, ignorance is not bliss.
Yeah.
Right. That's the number one rule. If you're ignorant, somebody's going to take advantage of you.
Okay. But there are times where we will receive calls from numbers that legitimately shows that it's from the bank or it's from the police station and all that.
Yeah.
How are these scammers able to just spoof these numbers, I guess,
Yeah.
onto our
But they're
call
legit
ID?
numbers.
Okay. So in the past, right, caller ID spoofing required a lot of advanced technology and telephone communication equipment. But nowadays, you can get like open source software online that does it for you,
So it's just an
right?
app.
It's just an app that kind of, see, what happens is usually when I make a call between the first and second ring, information will be sent regarding my caller ID,
Mm.
right? So that's why, like on mobile phones especially, you can see who's calling you, right? So what this spoofing software do is that between that first and second ring, they change the information,
Okay.
right? And they can, so as long as they have your number, so let's say if I want to scam you guys, as long as I have my number, I have your number, and I have the number that I want to spoof, I use open source software available and change that caller ID, right? And this happens a lot since voice over internet, or VoIP, VoIP, right? Voice over IP, which is like internet or digital
Protocols, right.
voice calls,
Yeah.
has become more common and popular. This is why phone scams have increased, because now people don't actually have to have like a physical phone. Everything can be done through computers and the internet.
But why are people making these kinds of software, these kinds of apps? Can't they, like the people on the app stores and everything, can't they just block it and stuff?
Well, I mean, there are some people who create technology to take advantage of others. There are some people who create technology as a proof of concept, right? There are some people who create technology to prove that there is a flaw or a weakness in the system,
I
right?
see.
And a lot of what you can say white hats, right, or the good guys in cybersecurity, sometimes they intentionally provide vulnerabilities and expose it publicly in hopes that by making it public, banks and organizations will have to take action,
Mm.
right? Because if it's a secret, then you know what, nobody really knows about it. But once a vulnerability has been revealed and made public, people are more inclined to have to take action to improve the system that is right now into a better system.
Okay.
Okay. You know, Aaron, I've actually heard of this case, right, where
Mm-hmm.
this mother received a call from the police saying that they've got her son in custody
Yep.
uh, because of some offense, and she will have to bank in some money to them to release him as bail or something.
Yep.
But when the mother tried calling the son, the phone was switched off and she cannot get through.
Right.
Can scammers actually switch off a target's phone too? Is this possible?
Well, this is not, I mean, again, with technology, I mean, humans are not perfect. Thus, anything human or man made isn't perfect. So, for me to say this is possible or not, there's no certainty, right? I
Yeah.
mean, something could be 100% secure right now in this second, and tomorrow it could be vulnerable,
Mm.
right? So whether it's possible or not, I would say it probably is possible. Whether that technology is out there or commonly available is another thing.
Mm.
But I don't know that in terms of like if somebody is playing around with numbers, they would have to kind of get it directly from your cell phone carrier, right? So it's a more elaborate scam in terms of this person might pretend to be you,
Mm.
go to a cell phone carrier, tell them that, oh, I've changed my phone or I lost my phone and can I get a new SIM card? This is my information, and information that's available through social media or that has been stolen from some other platform, right? Because, I mean, the great thing about these, like when you forget your password,
Yeah.
they'll ask you like personal questions,
Yeah.
and this is to help people who are not tech savvy, right? So if I ask you like, what's your mother's name? What's your first pet's name? These are things you can easily answer, right? But the thing is, these are things that you also share online. These are things that you've posted on social media, right? So
Mm.
these are information that scammers will farm and gather. And once they have a list of your first best friend, your school, your university, your degree course, your first date, all this information, then they'll go to carriers, for instance, and be like, "Hi, I'm Aaron," and the carrier will be like, "Okay, we'll just have to check this information. IC number, check. Wife's name, check. First pet's name, check. Okay, here you go. New digital or virtual SIM." And then with that, then it's a more elaborate scam. But
Mm.
in most cases, usually scams involve number spoofing,
Mm.
right? And whether this person's phone was blocked intentionally or coincidentally,
Coincidence.
I can't really say.
Yeah. Okay. But you were talking about social media. So, I mean, almost everyone is on social media nowadays, even the uncles and the aunties. My mom and dad's on social media, you know.
Yep.
How can we be safe on social media to avoid this oversharing of details and then getting scammed because of we overshared our details?
Um, well, I mean, there's a saying, right, in cybersecurity where sharing is caring, but oversharing is careless, right? So some people, what they do is they segmentize their life, right? So what I mean by this is I have my kind of real life identity and I have my online identity, and these two never cross path. And because they never cross path, if my online identity is hacked or stolen, it does not have any real world impact on my real life.
Mm.
So that's one way of doing it, right? Some people might do this with never revealing their real name, with never revealing any real pictures of themselves, or at the minimum, never a full like passport photo of themselves. That's one way of doing it.
Okay.
Another way is by having again in talking about like segmenting your digital and real life, having one email that's only for friends and family, and having one email that's for all your online activities, right? So we have to kind of have that line of differentiating between our real life and our digital life, because when they're too intertwined, what happens is when something bad happens in one, it'll have a dramatic impact on the other one.
Mm.
Another thing is um, we don't really have to share a lot of what we share. I mean, I remember when Friendster was a thing, And just when I got on it, everyone jumped to MySpace. And I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, MySpace is cool because of music. And
Yeah.
then just as I get into like customizing my MySpace wall, everybody went to Facebook. And I'm like, what's Facebook about? And I open up and I look at all my friends posting, and it's posting their roti canai for breakfast, posting their walk in the park with their pet. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just take pictures of food and stuff. So this creates a trend of what people feel they have to share online, right? And this sharing becomes oversharing because now the number of likes that you get is a status symbol, right? I mean, I remember when I was in school, a status symbol was how many flag erasers I had.
Erasers.
So if I had a lot of flag erasers going to school, I was the man,
Yeah.
right? And nowadays, it's like people compare Instagram likes, like how many hearts do you have? Wow, your post got this much views. It becomes a status symbol, so people are always constantly looking to update to get this kind of positive reinforcement to their lives.
So if we do segmentize or segregate our digital life and our real life, will that minimize our risk of getting scammed?
Yes, it will, because when you segregate or minimize the crossover of information, if a social media account gets hacked, critical information is not available for them, right? But what happens is when your Facebook account gets hacked, for instance, which rarely happens because Facebook and all these big companies like YouTube, they're very paranoid about security, right? But sharing that information is another thing, right?
Mm.
So what happens is now if you link your mobile phone to your social media and your social media is hacked or a criminal gets access to it, now they have your phone number. And from having your phone number, they might Google your phone number, and then suddenly,
Other
basically it's like a domino
information might
effect.
pop up.
Yeah.
From one little information, so on and so forth. I mean, an example is you might tell your kid or your nephew or niece, don't tell people what school you're from, right? And then one day it's sports day, whenever that will happen, hopefully.
That
With
happens
COVID, we
again,
don't know,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it crazy that you might be going like, when I was young, we had sports days. But okay, I digress. So a kid might be informed that they should never tell people online their school name. But then it's sports day, school picture taken, and in 99.9% of sports day school uniforms or t-shirts, what's the big thing at the front of the t-shirt?
School
The
name.
school
The
logo.
school name or school badge,
Yeah.
right? So again, this is where criminals are trained not to just look at information that you give them, but the hidden information. When you take a selfie, what's behind you, right? When you take a selfie, can I see the address on the gate behind you? When I take a selfie at a new car, can I see the license plate behind you? These are things that criminals are trained to look for in terms of unintentional, revealing of information.
Actually, on that though, I just read somewhere. I think it was in Singapore where uh, photos and videos from people's webcams, because now people are working from home, their webcams are on all the time and whatnot. They would switch off their webcams, and still the hackers or whoever it is managed to turn it on, captured very people in compromising positions and whatnot, right? And then if you don't pay a certain amount of money to keep it away, they will upload it onto the internet and stuff like that. Is that
This
possible?
has been happening for a very long time. There was a case a few years ago in the States where this teenager committed suicide because she had her laptop in her room, took a shower, was changing in front of the open laptop. The video was recording. Next day she went to school. This video was all over the place. Went back to school, committed suicide. Right?
Oh, no.
There's a reason why at Cybersecurity Malaysia, and again, I was there for 5 years and I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. But one thing is, two things that really caught me off guard is, one is there's no Wi-Fi at Cybersecurity Malaysia. So I
Really?
remember, like, you guys are supposed to be the front line of safety and security, and you don't have Wi-Fi, But
So
then you
what do they
learn
use?
why. Yeah, but then you
LAN
learn why there's no
cables.
Wi-Fi. Yeah. Sorry.
Do they use the LAN cables then to
Yes.
connect?
Yes. LAN cable. Exactly. Because with a
Why don't they?
Wi-Fi,
Yeah. Okay.
for instance, let's say now you're at LITE FM, right? And if you guys are in the same studio that I'm familiar with, you could have your Wi-Fi, right? But you could be in the parking lot right outside and still receive that Wi-Fi signal. So now that Wi-Fi signal is a gateway for me to enter your network without even stepping into your environment. See? So because of Wi-Fi signals, it's uncontrollable. So that's why no Wi-Fi at all. Everything is like a physical connection. That's one. Secondly, almost all the technical good guy hackers had plaster or sellotape on their
I've seen
laptop
that.
camera.
Yes.
They even said, what's his name? Mark
Mike
Zuckerberg
Zuckerberg.
has
Yeah,
a sellotape, has a black duct tape over his
Yeah, yeah.
camera.
exactly. And some of the new laptops
They
even
even
have
have.
like a little switch where you can just
Yeah,
slide
yeah,
it over,
yeah.
right? And this is because, again,
Is
your
someone knocking
system.
at your door? Sorry, Aaron.
Oh, I think it might be one of my kids.
Because we can hear knocking. And
Okay.
okay.
No, no, don't
Dad,
worry.
No, it's
stop
No,
okay.
talking.
no worries.
My youngest is 4, so he's still kind of like in a playful mood because daddy's home.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
He doesn't understand home and work from home
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but that thing works. That little switch thing. The for the
because it's
webcam.
a physical switch, right? So hackers cannot physically do anything about that little switch that
Right,
you
right.
have. But if it was like a button that switches it off, I would not even trust that because there are malwares that can activate a webcam without the light switching on, right? So like the webcam I have right in front of me, this one here, right here, there's
Yeah.
a red light saying that it's recording,
Yes.
right? So I would assume that, oh, no light, not recording.
Yes.
But there are malwares that can activate webcams without even activating the light. And this is what happens, right? So, I mean, I make it a habit where I actually physically unplug the USB to my camera as soon as I'm done with a call, you know.
Wow.
So, because I have 4 girls, I mean, I'm very sensitive about privacy and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, again, a system could be 100% secure right now, and an hour, a day, a week, a month down the road, it could be full vulnerability. There was even a Kaspersky, they're like an antivirus provider.
Yeah.
They did a report where there was this malware that could switch on your microphone on a laptop, which means
What?
that every conversation that happened around that laptop was recorded. And what's scary in that report is that they don't even know how long that malware has been doing its rounds. So it's not like something that they just discovered and it's only been out a few days. They actually have no idea how long that malware has been on the World Wide Web recording people's conversations around their laptop.
So Big Brother listening in on our conversations actually true.
Well, depends on your definition of Big Brother.
Right.
That's one, right? But dude, I mean, call it positive paranoia, right? So what I mean by positive paranoia, I don't want it to kind of like cause paralysis where you feel like I have to hide in a cave to be safe. Positive paranoia is where you have to make the assumption that somebody could be listening and watching you at all times. So what are the steps that you need to take? Or even just being careful with what you say, you know. And this goes back to traditional values of modesty. You know, like some people might say that, you know, walking in and out of a bathroom, you have like my grandparents would be like, hey, cover properly. And like, yeah, but I'm at home, you know, it's like
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
family. But I mean, these traditional values have their value now, right? Because with webcams and all these home appliances that can record, and let's not even talk about fridges that will have internet in the future, right? So everything's going to be connected. So a traditional value of modesty in terms of somebody could always be looking and watching and listening, you just have to be more careful.
Okay. Now, with so much tech that can assist in scamming and frauding and blackmailing us, are there any good techs out there that we can actually use to help us detect scams or frauds or things like that?
Now, yes, there are. Um, a lot of the softwares or let's say operating systems that you have on your laptop, whether it's a Mac or a Windows, do have built-in security features. But I try not to recommend any software. One is because, again, human-made, not perfect, possible vulnerabilities in the future. I don't want people calling me out like, dude, you know, you recommended this software and then I got hacked. So what's more important for me is that, yes, if you have these tools and they can help you, by all means, get them. But one thing to understand is be aware of whether they're free or not, right? Again, if they're free, not to say that everything free is bad, but again, if you're free, you're not necessarily the customer. You are the basically point of data retrieval. Again, some people might say it's a propaganda for a different perspective. But one of the key important points that I agree with is any platform that you use that is free, you're not the customer. So like Facebook, you're not the customer. The customers are the people paying for advertising, right? We are just the people they collect information from, so that they can pass it on to the marketing guys who will know that, okay, Aaron is on a diet and he's looking for dietary supplements. So let's push dietary supplements to him, for instance.
Right.
Right. So that's one. Free versus paid. There are pros and cons. Secondly, you can have the most canggih software in the world, right? But if you yourself practice bad privacy habits, it's still going to be a problem, right? And this goes back to oversharing. This goes back to personal information being put online or shared online and things like that. So if you don't change the the habit of being concerned about your privacy, any amount of software is not going to make a big difference because you're still going to reveal it.
Actually, on that, because you mentioned earlier that if we're not the customers, we're just basically a data funnel,
Yep.
right? Is our information being sold?
Well, on Facebook, definitely. Same with YouTube. I mean, it's no coincidence that you might look at something and then suddenly you'll see an ad for it, right? So it's been proven that social media platforms, their whole monetary system, how they make money and how they are sustainable and how billions of people on Facebook don't have to pay 1 cent to use it, is because they make money from advertising, right? I mean, on Facebook, I can go to the marketing feature and I can select, like, I want to send a post out to every single Malay male guy under 20 in Klang,
Right.
to that extent, right? Who, whether he's in a relationship or not in a relationship. I mean, these are all information that is valuable. And in the old days, people would have so much information, but they would not know how to kind of sift through that data, right? You'd have to have like a data analyst who kind of do a summary of, okay, because everybody is busy around dinner time, that means they're having dinner, right?
Yeah.
But now with big data, these are supercomputers who basically just do all of this automatically, right?
But
You
these are
don't need.
sold for marketing purposes, and I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But is our information being sold to non like dodgy people so they can scam us?
Well, I mean, Cambridge Analytics, are they considered dodgy?
Well, that's true.
Right? They got it legally. They got all that information legally. We talk about some accusations of certain social networks providing backdoor to the NSA. Again, the golden rule is, if it's very private and you don't want anybody to know about it, don't put it in digital form anywhere.
Okay.
Right? Because one way or another is going to come and bite you back in the butt, whether it's through malicious intent or through big brother manipulation, right? So, I mean, we just have to be more careful with our, I mean, in Malaysia, we already have a culture of, your IC. I remember when I got my IC, right? My dad kind of like traumatized me by what would happen if I lost my IC.
Yeah.
He was like, Aaron, you're 12 years old, here's your IC. You lose it, you're going to get pelumpang. My dad's old school. So we had this kind of brainwashed attitude of, okay, IC is important. And some people, what did they do? They didn't even bring the IC to school. What did they do? They
Take a picture of it.
take a
Photocopy.
picture,
Photocopy.
photostat it, right? In those days, it was photostat. So some kids would come to school with a photostat IC
Yeah.
because they were so worried that they'd lose their actual IC,
Yeah.
right? And in those days, if you lose an IC, you almost have to wait like 6 months for a new one.
Yeah.
So we have this kind of culture of being very secure with our information. But then suddenly when the internet came along and Facebook was like, what's your full name? Okay. What's your handphone number? Okay. What's your first pet's name? Okay.
Oh yeah.
So,
Never thought of it that way, actually.
Goodness, wow. So how can we keep ourselves safe online on social media so that we are not victims of scams then? How can they use all these information to scam us?
okay. Again, big questions. I'll try and narrow it down a bit. I wish we had more time, but okay. Let's talk about like phone scams particularly, right? Because that's where a lot of people are falling victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you look in Malaysia, the number one types of phone scams are people pretending to be the police, PDRM, people pretending to be from court, people pretending to be from Bank Negara, people pretending to be from the Suruhanjaya Pencegah Rasuah,
Yep.
and other government agencies and banks. That's in Malaysia. Now, if anybody calls you up claiming to be any of these agencies, tell them, thank you for the information. I will call you back, right? But don't call the number they give you. Call the official number. So like if you have a bank account on your ATM card, or debit card or credit card, you'll have your
Yeah.
1-800 number. Call that number, right? If it's PDRM, call PDRM's number. Never call a number that the person calling you is giving you. So that's number one. So when people tell me like, oh, you were involved in a hit and run in Kelantan, I'm like, I wasn't in Kelantan in the past 5 years. Well, we have you on the report. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. I'll call the nearest police station and find out. There's nothing they can do about that, right?
Right.
And same with the bank. If a bank calls you up, oh, we suspect some suspicious activities, and if you don't give us your information or transfer your fund to this account, we're going to have to freeze it, right? And same thing. Thank you for the information, and I'll call my bank hotline number. Just hang up and immediately call your bank and find out. So never call back the number they give you. That's one. Um, Secondly, again, if it's too good to be true, most likely it's not true.
Mm.
I mean, and again, with the hardship that people are going through with the COVID and not being able to work and things like that, people are desperate for any source of extra income, right? Sorry, there's a bit of a riot
No
outside.
worries.
That's all right.
I've had like four girls and a son stuck in a house for the last few months. Everybody's on edge. So, where was I? I was talking about
Too good to be true. Yeah.
too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
And again, criminals know how to feed on your emotions, right? So, for instance, we see a lot of scams have happened during COVID because a lot of people are desperate. A lot of people are desperate for information. A lot of people are desperate for a cure. A lot of people are desperate for financial aid. And this desperation creates a vulnerability that criminals are taking advantage of. And I guess thirdly is whatever platform you're using or device you're using, you have to get to know it like the back of your hand, right? You can't say, oh, I use Facebook, but I don't know anything about the Facebook security features or settings. That's a big no-no, right? And maybe once in a while, kind of audit yourself, right? Open up Google and type in your name, see what pops up. You know, that always helps. Just knowing what people know about you.
Mm.
And if it's a lot of good stuff, then, you know, alhamdulillah. But if there's a lot of bad stuff, then what can you do to kind of sort that out? Because like in the States, right, 86% of companies who are looking for employees do a background check on social media, right? And there's been cases where people with Harvard degrees, all A's, don't get a job because of something they said on social media or a joke that was a bit too racial or too sensitive or too social justice warrior related and stuff like that. And they don't get even with a Harvard degree, right? So we have to be very, very careful. In Malaysia, we have Siti Noramalina, right? Who a few
Yeah.
years ago was like the first student to ever get like, was it 12 or 13 A's in her SPM, right? Went to Scotland to study. Some photos came out. Her reputation was basically just dragged across the floor on Malaysian newspapers and tabloids. And now she's permanently in the UK. And you have to wonder, is she there because that's where an opportunity for her to advance her career is, or is she just like
She
what,
can
I
come
don't want
back.
anything to do with Malaysia anymore?
Yeah.
Mm.
Right. So basically, don't give them an opportunity to like any crook,
Mm.
right? Don't give them any opportunity to try and scam you.
Yeah, you have to be careful. I mean, people can knock on your door, right? And as soon as you answer that door, they'll be like, if they see you wearing glasses, how we're doing free eye tests,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If they see you have bicycles outside your door, hi, we're here and we're providing free bicycle services for kids who've been locked down under COVID. So, criminals will take advantage of any bit of information that they can get, anything that will get them in that door, anything that will get them, that will get you to open your gate and welcome them into your home, right? That's what social engineering is. Why do I want to break into your home when I can get you to willingly open the door? And that's the same with social media, right? I mean, you bump into somebody at the pasar malam and suddenly you get a friend request, right? You see somebody at like a workshop you've been to for one weekend and suddenly they want to be your friend on Facebook. I mean, do you let these people in? You only saw them for like 2 hours over a weekend, and then suddenly everybody feels that they have the right to be connected through social media. So
Yeah.
these are things we have to be aware of, and more importantly, for the younger generation, is to teach them these kind of important values.
Okay, I'm gonna unfriend a lot of people after this.
But I mean, like you said earlier, positive paranoia, how do we achieve that? By not just being paranoid and not answering any calls at all that you don't know.
Well, again, like bad paranoia is where I'm never going to do online banking. I'm never going to use social media. I'm going to I'm going to balik kampung and start raising sheep. That's, negative
That
paranoia.
might be a
Positive,
good idea too, actually. Just
who
to,
knows, who knows.
yeah.
But good positive paranoia, what I mean by positive paranoia is everything that's good from the internet, we take advantage of, right? There's a lot of benefits. The fact that my children can still learn and do maths quizzes online. Teachers can still have video calls. These are great things that are helping a lot of people. Um, so positive paranoia is where I want to take full advantage of what the internet gives me that brings value to my life, and remove anything that is not necessary, right? And it might sound a bit Spartan, but when you remove all the unnecessary stuff, what happens is if there's a breach, you're more likely to identify where that breach came from, right? Like for instance, if you're going to do online shopping, maybe a lot of online shopping companies are not going to like me. But for instance, if you're going to do online shopping, maybe stick with one, right? So at least if your information gets stolen,
You know
or
who
your
got it.
credit card or debit, you know that it must be from this company because they're the only ones I buy stuff from,
Mm.
right? But if I go to like 10 different platforms to buy stuff and my information gets stolen, then I'm kind of like, where from who did it happen? And nobody's gonna come and admit that, oh yeah, you know what, by the way, we got hacked. Unless like a million people get hacked and it becomes public knowledge, right? Another thing is like when it comes to what information you share. If somebody's calling you up asking for private information, again, if they're a bank, PDRM, any government related organization, tell them, thank you very much. I'll call your direct line right now. And if they say, yeah, but if you call, you're still going to be talking to me, then I'll be like, well, then I'll be talking to you the next 5 minutes then, right? So
Yeah.
don't let people kind of manipulate or pressure you. Any situation where somebody on the phone is rushing you to give an answer, this warning light should start going up. Like, why is this guy really pushy about me giving my IC number? Why is this guy really pushy about knowing my home address, right? These are things that we kind of have to take a step back, take a deep breath. Thank you. I will call the official hotline. Just make that kind of like a ritual.